So, you want to play a real brick wall of a fighter, huh? A shielded juggernaut your friends shelter behind and from which no enemy escapes? Well, you came to the right place. I'm Lord Generic, and together, let's build an easy to use and practical fighter. Here at Practical Pathfinder, I am only addressing the core points of your build. Our focus is in ease of use and room to really customize this build and make it your own. With that said, today we're making a fearsome trident and shield fighter, combining killer range and melee switch hitting with incredibly efficient defenses. It's time to remind your friends why the spear deserves its place as history's greatest weapon. Of course, every build has its pros and cons. As for the pros here, first of all, you're an incredible tank. Just unbeatable. Reactive shield and shield block will keep you healthy through all sorts of combat, and your strong thrown attacks give you excellent ranged options. Quite a rare thing for a high damage fighter. Fighter itself gives you consistent damage against any enemy thanks to your high accuracy. And when it comes to versatility, you have excellent AoE abilities. Rare on a fighter indeed, thanks to Rebounding Toss, and by level 10, your boss debuffing becomes one of the best in the game. As for cons, you are rather stat heavy. A need to max out strength and dexterity leaves no room for intelligence or charisma builds. You don't have too much in terms of crowd control either. Clever enemies might just run around you. While reactive strike helps dissuade them, it's not the greatest thing in the world. The biggest weakness is that both your hands are full as a shield and trident fighter. It's hard to use potions, it's hard to open doors, and it's hard to rescue maidens dangling off of cliffs in need of rescuing. Life's tough when you make sacrifices. As a result, this build is generally going to be best in a party with at least one other strong damage dealer, be that a rogue, a barbarian, an elementalist sorcerer. You're going to want someone else to really finish off the enemy. And it's a pretty feat dependent build. It's going to be hard to make use of archetypes and customize your character through the use of feats. We're going to eat up pretty much every feat until level 12. In terms of Ancestry, frankly, just pick whatever you love. All that matters is your strength, dex, and con. We're shooting for ideally +4 strength, +3 dex, and the rest into con and wisdom, mostly for your saving throws and HP. If you don't really know what you want, I recommend dwarf or orc. They're going to give you a lot of nice durability bonuses. And the thrown weapons make up for dwarf's natural slowness, so that's not really a problem here. If you don't like those, human gives natural ambition, which provides a first level feat. It's never a bad pick. Now, when it comes to equipment in your gear, every adventure is ultimately remembered by the wild and unique magic items you discover and the stories that come with them. With that in mind, we cover just your basic core kit from the start. First off, you're going to want a trident. It's your throwing weapon and your main thing. You could replace it with a chakram or a boomerang if that's your preference, but I'm going with the trident. Note that when you can, you're going to want either a returning rune or the ricochet stance feat at level 6. This lets you throw the trident and use it in melee still. Afterwards, you're going to want a shield. Of course, this is a shield build, isn't it? Take a sturdy shield when you can. It's very durable and has a high hardness, so your shield blocks will be fantastic. Also, you're going to want shield augments installed into your shield when possible. The reason is that this allows your shield to be used to trip and shove enemies, giving you some nice, sorely needed crowd control options. You're going to want some splint mail. I know, full plate's more popular, but as a dex build, you just don't need to pay the money for full plate. Splint mail is 17 gold cheaper, less than half the price, and there's no downsides compared to full plate. So, you can save some money and give that to your party and get them geared up even sooner. Everyone happy. Last, be sure to add a warhammer when you can. It's not a big deal. I just recommend this as a backup weapon that does blunt damage. You never know when you run into something like, say, a skeleton or a slime that you're going to want to avoid stabbing and you're going to want to hit with something, big and heavy. But what's a build without skills, am I right? As a spear and shield build, skills are going to be a little tougher to make use of. Your hands are full, so the wonderful standby of medicine, while amazing out of combat still, not so good in combat. And your stats are pretty locked down, so the charisma skills like Intimidate are mediocre at best. With that in mind, what I recommend is Athletics as your first skill to max out. Especially if you're the only strong character in the party, you're going to need a big, strong person at some point in your story, and that's you, buddy. In terms of combat, leaping is nice, but you can install a shield augmentation into your shield, and this enables you to use it to trip and shove or disarm. Talk about some easy utility and support. You now have melee attacks, ranged attacks, and some control options. Not bad. If you have no one else in the party with crafting, then that's your second skill. You absolutely need crafting in the party. The reason is, this is how you repair your shield. And a healthy shield is a happy shield. A happy shield is a living fighter. And a living fighter means a strong team. If you have any leftover skills, let's make use of that high dex stat, shall we? You could pump either stealth or thievery and turn yourself into the team scout or trap master just as easily. It's nice to cover multiple roles, isn't it? With all that out of the way, we can finally get to the good stuff. I know why you're here. It's Feats, isn't it? Your fighter's going to live and die on its feats, and today we're going in big on both shield and throwing options. Starting at level 1 with Reactive Shield. This lets you raise your shield as a reaction when you're attacked. Keeps you safe even if you spend your actions moving, pulling out weapons, opening a door, protecting your wizard, throwing, attacking. Whatever it is, you're still safe. Level 2, this is where the build comes online. That fast. Rebounding Toss makes you a powerhouse for the entire game. Full accuracy on 2 strikes against 2 enemies with no multi-attack penalty. You're going to feel rewarded for bringing a throwing weapon early and often here. Downside is, till you get a returning ruin or ricochet stance, you might end up with no weapon in your hand and shield bashing the surviving enemy into paste. It's unfortunate, but honestly, it's not that bad.
It looks like I just found you! It can't be. No way. A spear?
Got 3 at once. No, 4.
Level 4, we do have options. For the defensive-minded, Shielded Stride keeps you safer and lets you escape or approach dangerous monsters with a long reach. Though, keep in mind, as the tanky fighter, sometimes you need to be the one baiting out reactive strikes so that your team can move in safely or get away. It's not bad. I think it has more value at higher levels than lower. Personally, if you want more options in combat and especially a good melee strike, consider picking up Intimidating Strike, a 2-action attack that will apply Frightened to your enemies. This way you can keep debuffing the enemy in melee, hold them down for your team, and it's an easy win from there. Level 5, we're going to take a quick shout out. You're going to upgrade your fighter weapon mastery in spears. Not much to say here. If you take a different throwing weapon, you're going to want to take that weapon's type as your improved weapon proficiency. Hitting is nice, right? Now, level 6, that's where we get real options. Ricochet Stance is going to make you into a strong, independent fighter who don't need no returning ruin. And that ruin slot turns into pure damage if you can get a flaming or astral ruin later on. For the beefcake enjoyers out there, Shield Warden will keep your friends safe and comfy, letting you shield block for adjacent allies. Lastly, Reflexive Shield is for those who care about protecting themselves. Now your shield's going to protect you from reflex saves like Fireball, Chain Lightning, Dragon Breath. All solid options, Pick the one that makes the most sense in your team comp. Do you throw your weapon all the time? Do your teammates huddle behind you, or do they run away and you need to protect yourself? I'll let you decide. Now, level 8, level 10, this is where we start cooking. At level 8, quick shield block, this feat is required. Combined with reactive shield, nothing's going to break you. You get an extra reaction to shield block every round. Talk about value. Now you can go all in on offense while still being a nightmare to hurt. Your game master's going to hate you, and you're going to love beating down enemies. Level 9, again, shout out for fighter alone. They get an extra feat they can retrain every day. What do we pick? Well, whatever you need, honestly. Unless there's something specific, I'd consider both Felling Strike and Blind Fight. Felling Strike is fantastic with a thrown weapon because you can now shoot down flying enemies for your team to rip into when they hit the ground. If you don't run into flyers, Blind Fight's also fantastic. Hard countering invisible enemies, stealth, smoke screens. Level 10 though. How does a fighter even choose? Well, I'm going to choose Debilitating Shot, a 5-star, 10 out of 10 feat, normally reserved for ranged fighters like archers. Thanks to your throwing weapon, you get a dip into one of the strongest feats they have. Thanks to Debilitating Shot, you can take 2 actions, fire off a strike at range, and it just applies slowed 1. That's the effect of a 3rd rank spell. For free. Every round, you just throw that off the boss. They can't do their big moves anymore. They have to move towards you. Sucks for them. Fantastic value all the time. It's just good. And finally, at level 12, we will have a finished build and will be unbeatable. The Paragon's Guard stance means your shield is now raised forever. The end. Just that easy. Sorry, Ricochet stance. You've served us well, but you can't compete with a free raised shield every round. So if you took Ricochet stance, now's the time to retrain it and pick up that returning rune again. It's just too good. Now with class feats out of the way, we'll just address general feats real fast. There's no general feats that are particularly important to this build, but with that said, I would recommend Fleet and Toughness above anything else. Fleet is going to buff your move speed just a little bit to make up for your heavy armor. It's nice keeping up with the party for once. Toughness gives you more health. You're a frontliner? More HP is probably a good idea. And I would recommend avoiding Improved Initiative. Normally that's an all-star feat for pretty much every character, but as a fighter at level 7, you gain the trait Battlefield Surveyor. Battlefield Surveyor makes it so that you already get a circumstance bonus to perception rolls for initiative. So Improved Initiative doesn't do much for fighters. It's the only class I would not recommend it on, honestly. Now, for those of you looking for the complete package, or if you skipped ahead, I see you, you sly dog. Here's a practical build that'll keep you effective in many situations. Position yourself defensively to protect the team, throw your trident and pepper them with hits while the enemy approaches. Past level 10, hit them with Debilitating Shot for dangerous elite enemies or bosses. Your party will love you. Against groups, Rebounding Toss gives you lots of damage against multiple targets. Soften them up. Perfect team up for a wizard or a sorcerer with fireballs, any kind of AoE. You can really just grind the whole pack down at once. Do remember though, you're lacking in hard control, so you'll have to make yourself enough of an offensive threat that the monsters have no choice but to beat against your insane defensive wall. If the enemies keep trying to run past you, use that shield augment in your shield to go for the trip. Keep them on their feet when they stand up. You get a free reactive strike, and you wasted their action. If they don't want to stand up and they just want to hit you, great. That's the goal, isn't it? Simple enough. And that's a wrap. There's always a million and one ways to build in Pathfinder, but I hope this gets you going with something consistent and easy to use, with lots of options. Let me know if there's other classes or builds you'd like to see, or even just a character concept you want some advice on. We'll keep the Practical Pathfinder builds flowing, so subscribe to keep up and toss in a like if you enjoyed it. I'm Lord Generic, and thanks for dropping by.